most of you know me already. I guess most of you know me already. I also graduated from the Department of Economics here in UST, and I also serve as a teaching assistant during my service. And I'm currently pursuing my master's in applied economics in Eastern Michigan University. So I guess this is my last year, and as we all know, you are required to do a research work in your last year. So this is actually an ongoing project that I'm still working on it. I would say about 70 to 80% done, but since I have not submitted a final paper, I'm still on it. So as I'm about to start, you know, I'll get to your point. You know that I'm still working on the analysis. So I don't know if I can share my screen so I can share the slides, or Mazuko share from his end. Any of them will work for me.
Yes, please, you'll be allowed to share your
All right,
slides, please.
all right. Um, desktop one, desktop two. Okay. Is it is it okay? Can you
Yes, Kodom,
see?
I think it's okay with me. If you guys can see, please let us know, but you can continue.
Okay. So my topic, as we already know, is our education, institution, and environmental quality in Africa. So before I start, the project actually started last semester as well, my term paper. So my term paper, I assessed the EKC, that is the environmental coordinate curve hypothesis, which says that as a country or an economy develops, it, it starts to emit, pollute the environment more, like saying there's industrialization and all that. There's a lot of pollution, but it gets to a point that the country or the economy will be so developed that they start to adapt renewable technologies and start to build technologies that will mitigate environmental pollution. So that's what I work on. But then that one was specifically in the US. So I used the states in the US. That one too was a panel data research that I used the state in the US to do. But since this is my final work that I was doing, I decided to go back home and work something uh, either in Ghana or in Africa. So I decided to use Africa to build upon what I did initially or as my term paper. So here, most of the research that I found says there is a negative relationship between environmental education and environmental pollution. So I was like, okay, I found so many papers that was looking at education and environmental quality. So is that enough? What can we do? And I realized per my experience in Africa, I think that our biggest problem is the institutions or the system of government that we have there that is affecting us. So I was like, okay, what if you have good education, but the institutions are not good? Is it going to work? So I was trying to find, okay, first, so research, my first research question was, does education attainment reduce environmental pollution in Africa in general? And if we find out that, so I hypothesize that there is a negative relationship between education and environmental pollution. And so it means when someone gain a higher level of education, the rate at which the person is going to pollute the environment is low. And if that one holds, does institutional quality, good institutions, does it have effect in this relationship? If there's a negative relationship, as we are uh, stipulated, does the institutional quality affect this relation? Does it make it bigger, or does it have any relationship in general? So that was my research questions that I was working on. So as overview or background of it, Africa in general was seen as a net carbon sink, meaning when comparing the CO2 emission per capita to that of US, Canada, and most advanced countries, and even the European countries. You see, Africa, the rate at which we emit carbon dioxide and all those hazardous substances is very low. So it means the rate we pollute the environment is very low as compared to other countries. But then from 2019 coming, the the whole thing started changing. That though it's still low, but it's increasing, meaning there is a problem going on that we need to tackle. And also, most countries in Africa started emitting higher level of CO2, like Nigeria, for instance. And education, which is my main variable too, it is a problem in Africa that the it is believed that educational level in Africa is very low as compared to other developed countries and other European countries. And also, according to the World Development, World Government Indicators, um, institutions in Africa are very weak. So I considered all these things and say, okay, let me see if other researchers found in the European countries, America and China found this. Am I also going to find the same thing in Ghana, where we have low educational level and also weak institutions? So that was the background that I did according to literature and some
Hello,
of the
Kodom.
materials I came
Uh,
across.
Hello, Kodom. Please, not to cut you back. Can you go back? Can you go back one slide, please? Yeah, you
Okay.
mentioned that institutions in Africa generally are very weak. Do you mean that the institutions that are responsible for, I mean, educating people on these,
Oh,
uh,
yeah, yeah,
pollution, and
yeah.
are you specifically
So,
talking
yeah,
about them?
yeah. So when we talk about
Okay.
institutions here, we are talking
Mm-hmm.
about government quality. So the word government indicators have six qualities. That's the rule of law, um,
Mm-hmm.
governance
Corruption
regulation.
and others.
So is the those democracy and those kind of government qualities that they measure. So it is an index that they have it to measure as the overall institution. So institutions here are not like maybe a particular institutions in the country or
Okay.
in Africa, but those qualities that they look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to
And
make that point
yeah,
clear.
I was
Yeah.
supposed to even mention it because
That's
when
fine.
you
That's
mention
fine.
institution, I know someone will just, yeah, it makes sense. Thank
Yeah.
you for prompting
You're
me.
welcome. Yeah. Please go on.
So my theory was based on the human capital theory, which says that as people gain more education, their productivity level increases. So I also stipulated that if that's the case, then when people get educational level improve, there's going to be awareness and they are going to be greener behavior. Like people are going to adapt how do you call it, renewable source of living. Like they are going to adapt to different source of energy that is not going to pollute the environment like that. And also institutional economics, which we know from last year coming after the Nobel Prize, that the paper that won was about institutions. So from there, people started considering institutions in Africa, in economics, that most things cannot work when the institutions in the country or in their economy are weak. So it's very necessary to consider institution whenever we are looking at some of these things. So the next thing is okay. So how does these two interact? So that is the whole thing. That is my main argument that education alone cannot do the work. But when we get the good institutions within the country that is going to interact this relationship, it will makes it work better. So my data was I was trying to get enough data, but as you all know, data in Africa is a very big issue. So I downloaded all my data from WDI, the Penn World Database. That's where you get education. That's Human Capital Index. That's the measure of education. That's what they used. And I downloaded my institutional qualities from the worldwide governance indicators. So from there, I started looking at them. Out of the 54 countries in Africa, I ended up getting 39, which is quite significant that I decided to work on because most of the other countries are not having the data that was needed, so I have to drop them. And these are the variable, my main variable, my main dependent variable was the CO2 per capita educational index. That's the measure of education. That is human capital index. And also the institutional qualities that I talked about it earlier. And I use GDP, energy use, and trade urbanization as my control variables that they can also affect the level at which a country emits CO2, which is very crucial. I will talk about it when I get to the analysis part because most of the variable, since it's a work that I'm doing, I always work with my supervisor. So sometimes he will say, okay, you need to control for this, you need to control for this. But then some of these controls too are highly correlated with GDP. So when you try to include energy consumption, which is also seen as a consumption that has been already calculated in the GDP, it makes it very highly correlated. So that was the problem that I was having with my analysis because most of the independent variables are highly correlated. But overall, these are the um, data that the variables that I was trying to consider. And this is the graph of this African map showing the countries that are included in my study. Out of the 54 countries, these are the 39 countries that are included in the study. And the model specification, I know we all know
Even before you continue, so you gave us a glimpse of that's a nice map, by the way. Thank you for doing that. Did you do that? Uh,
yeah, that's I was even surprised. I didn't know
or
R
use
can do that, but when I was
oh,
going,
okay.
I came
I
across
remember I was
uh,
having a presentation. I was supposed to do something like this. I struggle with it. So thank you for this one, by the way. And also regarding the data. So you mentioned that you had to drop some countries, right, due to
yeah.
missing, variables. Like what was your experience with, the finding the data for your research, given that it is a data that has to do with Sub-Saharan Africa? Did you do
Yeah,
anything
so
different that helped you to, find more, like, to be able to fill in most of those missing variables? Did you do anything different?
yeah. So first I downloaded my three key variables. That is my CO2 emission, which it seems like all the African countries have data for that. And the educational data, that's the human capital index, and my institutional quality. It's like those two are the main thing that I was considering. Aside that the CO2, most African countries are having it. That one wasn't a problem for me. But the other two variables of interest, that's where I was getting the problem. So what I did is I look at them, those who were not having data for those two variables, I removed them. And that's why I decided to use the map to see if there's going to be any bias. But then when you look at the map, the shaded parts are those that are included. So it means I consider every part of the Africa, both north,
Yeah.
south. So I got enough country that fit into the all part of Africa. So you can generalize it. It's not happening that
That's
they all
amazing.
happen to be at the southern part or the western part, but every part of Africa, I got some countries from there. So that's what I was trying to use interpolate so that
Mhm.
I can get enough country. But my boss said, as I said earlier, I'm working as a teacher, so anything that I knew that I need to consult him. He said,
Yeah.
no, he doesn't want me to tamper with the data.
Hmm.
And I also
Yeah,
planning to,
interpolation has a lot of disadvantages, and most
yeah.
professors will not allow you to
Yeah.
do that because
So I
yeah,
also
it's
listened to him because I was like, okay,
yeah,
maybe even with this presentation, maybe after that, I'll get someone who is interested in it that I can work with him to we can publish it. And if when it happens like that and the data is tempered, it's going to create a problem. So
that's
that's the
true.
main
That's
reason
true.
I look at the countries that have their data available and I work around it.
Good job. Good job. Thank you. Please, you can continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I move on to my model specification. So I decided to use GMM because there's first we all know I'm working with dynamic panel because I included the lag dependent variable which is TCO2 emission. Because I work with similar thing last semester. I had overview of how it's going to be. I realized I ran the analysis last year and I realized that how do you call it? The previous values of CO2 emission really account for the current values. So you see that when you do the analysis, you see a high correlation between them. So I said then it's a it's an important variable that I need to add it to make a dynamic panel. And also my education and the control variables that I was looking to, I tested for indigeneity and I realized there's indigeneity in it. So after meeting with my boss, he was like, okay, I should consider GMM and fixed effect. The one that will work better. I'll do all the tests and see the one that is going to work. And I choose. So I started with the GMM, and that's what I'm still doing, though it's quite complex, but I'm still on it. And there are how do you call it, some disadvantage or some struggling with it. But I believe if I'm able to finish with it, that's going to give me a very robust results that I can present. So with the GMM2, we have difference and system GMM. So with for me to choose between difference and system, they have to do some checks too. So the first rule of thumb is if I have the lag dependent variable in it, first I can go with the system GMM. And if my T is also shorter, I can go with the GMM shorter than my N. And here to my T, that's the time series component is shorter because the world government indicators, the institutional quality data, they started with 2 years, 2 years. When you download that data, they started with it repeats every 2 years. Like the frequency is 2 years, 2 years until I guess 2002. That's where they started making it a 1 year frequency. So with that, I had to either make my data 2 years, 2 years, or just cut it from 2002 coming. So from it makes my time series component very shorter as compared to the countries that have 39. So it makes system GMM the best estimation to use here. That's why I decided to go for GMM. But I'm still open for suggestion and anything since I'm still working on it. If I had to go with a fixed effect, I'm still flexible to change it. But looking at some of the components that I have in my data, I felt the system GMM is the best fit for it, aside its complications. Yeah. So these are this as
Okay,
I
so please, before you continue, I see that you wanted to show us some of the results already, or the expected results. So, like as we know, for example, before whenever you have like a panel data, before you estimate, you have to go through like a series of different estimations. Do you just start with the GMM because I think you are still most focused on the system GMM, given that most of the assumptions fit with the data that you were having, or did you just try some of the preliminary tests that we know we carry out on our panel data before you eventually reach the GMM?
Okay.
Did you? Yes,
So the first thing I did is the fixed effect.
exactly.
Even
Okay.
with my previous last semester's how do you call it, term paper, I used fixed effects. And fixed effects you have different. We have random, within, and all that. So because I'm very comfortable with the fixed effects, I ran all the fixed effects, but then I didn't get the expected sign. So I was
Okay.
like, okay, let me drop some of the controls and see if I can get. I didn't get, but then I was like, okay, since the data and the data seems best fit for GMM, I need to try GMM too.
You
So
also mentioned
I,
the data. I don't know why, but it seems Reverend Francis is saying that the data spans from 1996. I don't know
no,
whether
the
I
data
think
spans from
you mentioned that, right?
1996. The data
Yes.
spans from 1996, but then from that time
The
coming is two
two
years
years, right?
difference.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
if you
think you
want to
mentioned
go
that
by
point.
that, you have to group the other part of it 2 years, 2 years.
And you still end up with a shorter time period,
Yeah,
right?
you still end up
You
with
do
a
it
shorter
that way.
time period. So I decided
Yeah.
to then cut it from where it started 1 year to make it easy to handle.
Okay. I think Reverend will be satisfied with that. Okay. Yeah,
And
please,
since
you
I'm
were
still
answering that.
yeah, since I'm still working on it, if you have any idea how to handle that part too, I guess I'm still welcoming it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Reverend, please feel free to you can even reach out to him on the page, on our WhatsApp page, and you can share with him your ideas and how best to handle the data. Okay, please go on,
All
Emmanuel.
right.
Yes.
So the okay, so the expected sign, as I mentioned earlier, is that I was expecting education to reduce pollution, so that I was looking at the negatives and significant, of course, result for education. And institution too, I was expecting the same sign. And the interaction term too, I was expecting the same sign, but here there should be a significant difference within the magnitude of it. So according to according to the theory and the literature that I reviewed, these are the expected signs that I was expecting. But then when I got to the analysis part, I wasn't get honestly, I will show you the analysis in the R, but I wasn't getting these results. But then I feel it makes sense not to get these results because according to the envi- environmental coordinate curve hypothesis. I don't if you are familiar with that hypothesis. It says that when a country or economy start developing, they start emitting more CO2 or they pollute the environment more. But when they get to the peak or when they develop to certain level, then they start to adapt to new technologies before
Mm.
this effect will take in. So if that's the
Okay.
case, I don't think Africa is at that point where they have reached the point that industrialization is at its peak. They have adopted cleaner technologies like electric vehicles and all that. That is going to reduce this pollution. So sometimes when you are working with academic work, it's quite difficult because sometimes you are restricted in a way because most of the papers presented negative result. But I think
Mm.
Africa shouldn't have a negative result at this point. I think Africa is still climbing up, developing that they are going to make a lot of industrialization and all that. They are importing new cars and all that. So it's going to contribute to all this, despite the fact that
Acceleration of the pollution. Since
yeah,
you've mentioned that empirically, you mentioned at the beginning that you used a data of the United States. Did you
yeah,
find evidence of this
yeah.
expected
So
results with that?
yo, yeah. So with the US data, I got the U shape, the infected U shape perfectly. Yeah,
A
I got the
hypothesis. Okay.
infected U shape perfectly, which shows
Okay.
that the EKC hypothesis holds. But then, if that holds, then I feel Africa should be climbing up right now, despite all the efforts we are making in education and in institutional quality. Our institution, as I explained earlier, is not at that point that is so efficient to say, even in Ghana, we know most of this galamsey and all that, the institutions are not strong. That's why we are not able to fight it. So we have not reached the point that we should expect a negative result. But then, as the literature says,
With the
It's
Galamsey, don't forget to add that our leaders are also not willing to fight the Galamsey because of
yeah,
corruption.
those
They
are
are
those
part
are
of
those are all part of the
yes,
institutions.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
we
true.
have weaker
Yes, that's true.
institutions.
Yeah, and very corrupt leaders too, of course.
Yeah.
They are contributing to our institutions being weaker and weaker. I think Reverend Francis wants to say something. So after Reverend Francis has, please, you can unmute to continue, Reverend Francis. So after he's
I-
done, please, I would like for you to go into the hour so that we can
I'm sorry, my
accelerate
baby
the
girl
pace.
here is making noise. Can you please?
Okay, thank
Yes.
you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting, and thank you very much for your beautiful presentation. I think the purpose of your study is to look at environmental Kuznets situation in the case of Sub-Saharan Africa, which is to say whether there is, a potential linear or non-linear relationship between, education and, pollution. I don't know, but what I expected from your modeling is a part of a non-linear approach instead of a linear approach. Because if you are attempting to investigate environmental Kuznets, then we want to say that at some level of education, pollution responds in a certain manner, then it gets to a threshold, then the sign turns to the opposite.
Yeah.
So I was expecting a nonlinear, kind of modeling rather than a simple linear, relationship. Then on the case of the institutional quality, you know, kind of concept, I work with that data a lot, and I know that they start from 96, but intermittently, about three of the years, I think 97, 99, and 2001 are not there. And so by practice, what most of the papers do, including some of the few papers that I've done, we do an average. We insert the 90, 97, 99, and 2001 years in the institutional quality, series, that we find the average of the previous and the
My end?
the previous and the
Subsequent.
the following years.
Is it from my end? I can't hear.
Yeah. Oh, uh,
Oh, shit.
Ima, you can hear? Hello, Ima.
Oh,
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
is it
Can you
clear
hear
now?
Francis?
Yeah. Now I can hear.
Okay,
You mean
okay,
you
that's
didn't
fine.
hear him from begin, like when he started, you've not heard what he was saying? You couldn't hear
I
what he
got to
was
the
saying?
point that he was trying to explain why the institutional
Oh, the
quality.
data. Oh, please, you can start from
Okay,
there, Francis. Okay.
very good, very good. So just by way of continuation, I said that the institutional quality data start from 96, but 97, 99, and 2001 are not part. And so by practice, what you can do is to insert those 3 years, then you find the average of, the data before and after, so that you can get a more balanced panel. And that is what most of the papers do. Because if you want to drop 97, 99, and 2001, it means that you're actually going to drop those respective years in the other series, the other way, the other variables, and that is loss of data. So you can look at that. Then on your theory, you see, it is difficult for education to naturally impart, pollution without a moderation,
Mm,
because we expect education to trigger some important sectors like industrialization before we will see that feedback into pollution. Because if people are educated and they don't apply the education, you know, the environment still remains the same. But it is after when they have applied the education, maybe through agriculture, through industrialization, through manufacturing, that we will expect that, kind of feedback into, pollution. So maybe you may want to add in inclusion, or in addition to the institutional quality moderator, look at industrialization as well. And to me, I don't expect you to get the same thing that you had in US in the case of Ghana,
Actually,
especially when you yourself you alluded that we've not gotten to that level of industrialization that we expect, the environmental kuznets situation. Thank you. Maybe I'll hold on for now
Francis,
as we go on.
before you go off, uh,
Yes,
yeah, before you go, since I think you noted that you've been working with this data for a while regarding the
yes.
theory, especially the 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 other framework that is using. Do you know of any that actually follow the one that you just mentioned?
You mean the environmental kuznet?
Yes, no, I'm talking about the theory that the is it like the theory that he's using, not the theoretical
Mm-hmm.
framework,
Yeah.
the other framework that he's using. Do you know of any framework that follows the one that you are talking about?
Well, I don't know whether I don't understand you, but is it the modeling strategy?
Yes.
Okay, so for the modeling strategy in the case of environmental kuznets, is simply an approach to look at the potential nonlinear relationship between, education and pollution. And so for nonlinear modeling, we have the usual, quadratic approach where you say that, you run, pollution on education itself and the square of education with some controls.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
we can also look at this popular Hansen approach, but that one requires your data specification, where the
Yeah, that
data
one.
has to be.
So actually,
The,
I was asking about, you mentioned that the transition should be from like education to like industrialization before pollution, because you noted that it is very difficult to have like a direct, situation whereby
y-
like education directly impacts, our
yeah.
ability to reduce pollution. Then I was asking about whether you know of that theory or framework that actually, like show that education, when it is applied like to industrialization or manufacturing, then like there's an evidence that it will reduce pollution. That
Okay.
was just what I'm asking. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
That's
So
fine.
that
So
was the
again,
question.
All
that
right.
that for that, I'm not sure it's been tested well in the
Okay.
empirics. Yes,
Okay.
so
Okay.
it's a
That's
green
that's the
area for
question.
him.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
question. Okay.
Okay.
So then
So
back to you. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So I want to
But before you
clarify
show us
something.
my Vanessa was asking whether during the theoretical or the literature you found evidence that it actually reduces in Africa, like whether education actually leads to a reduction in the pollution or CO2 emission in Africa. Did you find any evidence in the literature with that?
Can you take it again?
Like Vanessa was asking whether you found any evidence that in literature, like education actually reduced pollution
Oh
in
yeah, yeah, yeah,
sub-Saharan Africa.
yeah. A
Oh, you
lot.
did?
Yeah, a
Oh,
lot.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Please
So
continue.
I
Yeah.
guess I didn't include a literature review because I
That's
didn't want
fine.
the
That's fine.
slide to be
Yes,
very
yes.
long. And
Time. Yeah, time.
actually I found only one paper that was looking about my exact topic, like education and institution as a moderating factor of to reduce pollution. So for education and institution direct relationship, I have several papers that work on it. Some in Africa, others in other parts of the world. So I have it. And with Reverend first one, I mentioned the EKC hypothesis because I said that is what I worked on last semester as my term paper. But this semester, I'm doing something similar about the environment. Oh, can you please?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go on. We can hear you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine. We can
so
hear you.
this time around, I'm just looking at a different thing, not the same thing, not the same environmental, and not the same EKC. But then, since I did that one previously, I kind of have um idea about how the pollution works and all that. That's why I said I'm thinking that Ghana, Africa in general right now, that kind of quadratic relationship is not going to show right now. So maybe. my next attempt, I'll try to look at the quadratic, but I still not going to expect that quadratic function to show here or the inverted U shape to show in Africa because we haven't gotten there yet. Yeah. So
Okay,
that
that's okay. Thank you
so
for
that
answering the question.
and thank you, Reverend. I think
Yeah,
I'll check
Reverend, we appreciate you so much.
the data for the WGI for the government indicators too. So I think that was the signs that I was expecting for now. And I don't know whether I should do this before or I
Yeah,
should.
I think just do the contribution. Then after that, just show us like the code in R. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then after that,
So
we can yeah.
so the contribution first, I found that most of the papers that I was looking at, most of them were done in OEDC countries and China and the US.
Please, excuse me a bit. Please, Edward, you can come in with your question, please.
All right, thank you. So, s- you said in your literature or in your data that the CO2 pollution was increasing over time in Africa.
Yeah.
And now you're saying that you didn't expect the relationship between education and CO2 emission. So, do you have any possible explanation, any other possible explanation for the increase in CO2 emission over the years?
Yeah, I think it's increasing because Africa is developing now. Um, the industrialization is going on. Trade openness is also a factor that people import some cars that maybe probably old and all that, and maybe population is also increasing because one thing that I observe in my data is that, and the theory also mentioning that I think 2019 or so, the CO2 emission per capita for Nigeria really increased significantly. So I think Africa is developing and um, population is also increasing. So I guess those two are the two main factors that could, I mean, affect the increase in CO2 emission in Africa in general.
Okay, so your hypothesis is that, for instance, education is not really what is increasing the CO2 emission, rather than these things like imports of these cars and industrialization, you said, no?
Yeah, so I hypothesize that overall development is what is happening because that is why we know that when we are developing, when we are adapting new technologies, and this education factor that we are saying is human capital development that we are talking about it here. So when the human capital is developing, we adapt new technologies and all that. So when you look at the measure of education by the Penn data, they measure it as human capital, but they measure it as a number of years of education. So here we
Hmm.
are talking about development in general and build human capital in general.
Okay, because I'm trying to see the link between the development you're talking about and levels of education. Because I would expect, for instance, if there is development, then it means educational level is supposed to also increase. But
Yeah,
then when
and
there
this.
is the relationship between education and pollution, then yeah, I think I would agree with what Reverend said earlier, that you should try looking at the important mediating factors. I think that is because for me, I would expect that if there is education, like more education attainment, then there is like the industrialization you're talking about, and then there will be higher pollution. That would be what I would
Yeah,
expect, but
so
maybe
you
it's not
you
linear.
think the moderating factor should be like industrialization.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
that is a very important
Yeah,
factor, and also
that
the
is a very
non-linear ones.
important factor.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But me, my problem is Africa, our main problem is not all these factors. Our main problem is institutions. I know if the institutions are functioning effectively, um, things are going to work. So the reason why I consider the institution is that I see that regardless of whatever we have in the country, if the institutions are weak, there's no way things are going to work better. Regardless of how people get education, regardless of how industries are. institutions should be something that should be considered. That's why I said last year, after the last year Nobel Prize, when the paper that won the Nobel Prize, people started looking at institutions a lot, and we started having this institution economics that people focus mainly on institutions. That's why I considered institution. But I think I agree with the fact that considering the channel of industrialization is also a very good factor that maybe I will consider it sometime.
Yeah, maybe for robustness, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
But I have industrialization as a control variable.
You have industrialization as a control variable?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that. All right, thank you.
I think your topic is really interesting. I can see a lot of people are raising their hands. I have Unsubono is raising his hand. Please, can you come in? I think after he asks his question, maybe you can just wrap up the contribution. Maybe do some R for 5 minutes. Then after
Yeah.
that, we can
Yeah.
we can wrap it up. Yes. Please
All
go on,
right.
please. Yes.
Thank you, Master Mazik. T.A. Mazik. I still remember
Oh,
you.
yeah, most welcome.
All right. So, Kodom, I want to add a little bit to the environmental issue. I would say I'm interested in environmental issue because I want to work on, I want to do project on that one. So I would like to contribute a little to explaining why we would not expect reduction in, let's say, pollution or environmental or CO2 in Africa with corresponding to education. Because we can even start to talk about educational terms, let's say in terms of percentage. What is the percentage of educational attainment in Africa? So you shouldn't expect that because US, maybe US and other Switzerland, they have something about 96% education attainment and other stuff index. So education should have impact. But recently there was even a data on South Africa and Ghana, which was even having highest education attainment was around 22% or so. So which means significant number of the population in terms of education have not attained it. So still, there will be a great impact on what? Environmental pollutions and other stuff. So you shouldn't be expecting negative effects. And on the industrialization side too, although Africa is developing, so we are CO2, we should expect it to increase. But still, Africa CO2 compared to the developed countries still insignificant in terms of international comparison. If you look at international comparison of countries that commit, that's committing to CO2 increment in the world, Africa is very low in terms of industrial side, which means it shouldn't be concerned. The recent issue that increased Ghana's CO2 was coming from environmental, which was illegal mining, of which when you are talking about the top countries, Ghana was part, Indonesia, Brazil, due to illegal mining and stuff. And that's when you come there to talk about how they are also contributing to CO2, there's also an issue of this thing, the poverty, because me too, I'm also doing a course in poverty. So we tend to explain the difference between environmental issues in developing countries. And they have papers on it, which explains how the poor thinks. You get what I'm trying to mean? More or less like the Human Development Index, maybe you have the education, you have everything, but we don't commit to environmental protection because of the poverty level. So most times our focus is on maximizing our consumption in terms of, instead of what, maximizing our environment. And that one seems to be very evident in developing countries, not only in Africa. And it's very true. So let's say if a person, whether the person is educated or not, and is going into certain activities in developing country, the person first thinks about the money he is gonna get to maximize their consumption instead of whether it will affect the environment, whether it will contribute to CO2. So that thing should also explain it, like the poverty aspect of what developing countries, which also intends to affect the cognitive mindset of what the individuals. also can contribute to CO2, despite
No,
maybe the
so
yeah,
Bono, yeah,
yeah,
I think Kodom is noting down your contributions, and I think these are really important. And as this is a seminar, it's very important that this stuff mentioned. And I think Kodom will note most of the
Yeah,
contributions that you've made. But I will kindly ask you to maybe if you can wrap it up for him so that he can just
yeah.
take us through the R code that he ran. Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
So I was just ending it. So I was also asking to like to also, let's say, include the issue of poverty or developing countries, maybe people to support his evidence why we should not expect, let's say, a fall in what CO2 in Africa. Because I know of about some papers in Indonesia, in India, and other stuff, which has really explained that one too. Yeah.
Okay, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And Emmanuel, I think you are noting some of these
yeah, yeah,
important
yeah. I,
contributions.
I,
Yes,
I
please, if you can, yeah, I can. I see we can see your contribution now. I know you would like to go in, but please, maybe if you can take us through some of the R, maybe for like 5 minutes, then we
yeah,
can wrap it up,
yeah,
please.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think Abonke, I've heard you, but then you mentioned
Oh,
something
yeah,
that
that's Abonke, right?
yeah,
Oh, oh,
Abonke.
I see. Okay, I see. From
He
from
mentioned
AE,
something
right?
that I want to
Okay,
clarify
okay,
before I
okay,
go to
okay.
my R code. He said, looking at other countries and other developed countries, how they emit CO2 compared to Africa is insignificant, so there's no need for that, which is very bad statement. That's I'm sorry to say. I don't. It's not good to say that because looking at my literature review, I find that in sub-Saharan Africa, just in sub-Saharan Africa alone, from 2000 to 2019, there is about close to 20% increase in uh, CO2 emission. And in Nigeria alone, from 2010 to 2019, there is a 9% increase in PM 2.5. So it's a concern that we don't have to wait to it to get to that level. As we are it's increasing now, we have to attend to it. That's why we are researchers. We have to find out, no, there is a problem, so we need to solve it. Maybe the channel or the channel may be or the approach may be there may be some problem with it, but an issue that CO2 emission in Africa is insignificant is something that I think we don't have to think to because all problems start small,
Ah,
small
okay,
before it
okay,
gets to that
Kodom.
point.
1 minute.
So thank
Sorry,
you.
maybe
Um,
maybe if I made that statement, I didn't mean to say it's insignificant, but I was
Yes,
trying
and
to
I agree
say,
with him that he meant
yeah,
he didn't mean that. Yes,
yeah,
because
I was trying to
as
say that
researchers, that's how.
if we
Yes.
if we talk about the industrial side, we don't actually
Okay.
commit huge to CO2, which means there are more other factors, which was coming from environmental pollution. That was where I link it to the poverty and what the mindset, the cognitive mindset.
all right, thank you.
And I link it
So
to that I'm saying, you get
yeah,
it.
I'll look at it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I think even other panelists also pointed to that fact that all those other factors may play a role in mediating the effect of the CO2. Okay, please go on.
Yeah, so I'm still working on it. I'm open to collaboration. So you can email me or text me. So with ideas and anything, I welcome that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I don't know if you can see my R.
Yes, yes, we
Okay,
can see it, please.
okay. So okay. So since this is academic work, I was supposed to provide what is called data appendix where I summarize all my data set. And there's something that I don't know if any of us joined R the seminar today. It was excellent seminar that they taught a lot on how to use R and basically the introduction of R that I enjoyed. It was early here, but I still enjoy it. And I think those seminars are the best way to learn R because some of these opportunities we may not have the enough time to go through everything step by step.
And to that end too, I would like to I mean, thank Japan for sending that link, and I will encourage you guys whenever you find some of those links, please send it to our page so that our members can learn and benefit from some of these amazing opportunities. Yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Japan.
I think
Thank
they
you.
are
We
going to
appreciate you.
do it. They are going to continue next week. So
Okay.
maybe Edward will
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
yeah, we'll send the link.
yeah,
We'll send the
yeah.
link.
So now my professor told me now coding alone is not a skill again because it has become so easy to code because I don't need to know.
ChatGPT. ChatGPT.
I don't even have to use ChatGPT. Now R has its own built-in AI that when you are typing, the moment you are typing, it can suggest the code for you. So the best thing is to know how the code works, being able to interpret and all that. So that's what really helped me in my coding because sometimes I may not even know the code, but then the moment I start typing maybe summary statistics, it will just start suggesting what I want to know. The possible things is it when I just enter summary, it just suggested summarize data. And when I click on it, it will going to give me code the code for it. So mostly now I'm not really concerned about the code, but how to understand it, how to use it, and being able to interpret your result is a very key thing. And seminars like what we did yesterday too will help you. So fast forward, these are just libraries that if you are using R, you need some libraries to, I mean, to load it to enable you to do your work. So these are some of the few libraries that I use: dplyr, ggplot, stargazer, and all that. And I loaded my data here. Uh, some like all the data set that I use, you can import it straight in R. But since it's a academic work I have to provide report for everything. So that's why I have to download the data and import it so that I can get the data set for that. So that is it. And here are the African countries that are included in my paper. And here are just summary of the code that I use. So I try to provide some get information about each of the variable like CO2, how it is measured, how it is measured, the distribution for that. And these are the CO2 emission for Africa in general. So you can see that from 2010 coming, it's really going up. And 2020, it came down because of the COVID. And here are some of the control variables that I use. I mean, okay, this is my human capital index to measure education. And this is the uh, institutional quality index and GDP per capita and other controls that I use. And the map to the code that I use is also here to get a map. And also I have a gradient map to show
That's nice.
which part of Africa or among the countries among my data set that has higher levels of emission too. So that is basically the data appendix providing the summary and information about each of the variables that I use. So the real analysis is why I started here. So as usual, I load my data. I told R that this is a panel data and all that, and I provided a summary I provided correlation metrics. That's why, though you can't use the correlation metrics here alone to make any um, analysis, but I just wanted to see how these variables are correlated to each other. So I just provided a correlation matrix for that. And the Stargazer too, I don't know. I know most of us using R know Stargazer. It helps you to, it helps provide a good output so that you can present in your paper. So you can get it in HTML, Word, or text. So you can just copy from there and just use it in your work. So mostly I use the Stargazer to get my correlation metrics and also the summary statistics too. And this is how I did so many analysis, but then with the GMM, this is how I started it. I started with just education alone to see what will happen. So I ran this for just education alone. Then I ran for just the institutional quality alone. Then I added the two. Then I added the interaction term. Then I added the control variables that I intended to use. So the full model is here. I have the education, government, the interaction term, and I have GDP per capita. I have industry as a percentage of GDP, urbanization as a urban population as a percentage of the total population too. And I run it. So I'm sure I've run all that before. So this one should be able to provide me with a stargazer. Oh, yeah.
And for those of you who are learning Python too, the Stargazer, when you go into Python, we have the styler. So if you are doing like a summary analysis or anything that you are going to show like a very small summary, table or something, you can use the styler to have like a touch of like a beautiful artistic like style like that. I can see a Japan nodding here. I think he has used it before. So for those of you who are using Python too, it's something that you can look at here. Okay.
So with those four results that I ran, the first one is just with the education alone and the lag dependent variable. And the second one is just the institutional quality alone with the lag dependent variable. And the third one is the two with the interaction term. And the final one is with the control variable. And as I said, I'm still working on it, that I'm not done. I probably most of the variables are highly correlated. So when you are using GMM, system GMM, and it's so highly correlated, sometimes it doesn't even run. So I keep dropping some, like this energy consumption was passed, but it was highly correlated with GDP, which makes sense. So I drop it. So I'm still dropping and seeing the best way I can get the results. But then so far with all that I have, none of the variables are giving me significant result. Though when I control for other factors, the signs are what I was expecting, but then they are not significant, showing that there's probably something I'm not doing right, which I said I'm still working on it. So
Okay.
until then,
Yeah, I think we would like you to end the hour here. I think today you've gone a little bit above time. But then my boss Francis, sorry, Japan want to ask something. I don't know. Let me give him 1 minute so that you can go
yeah,
back
sure,
and finish
sure.
with the contribution. Yes, thank you, Japan. Please go on.
Thank you, T. Point of correction, I'm not the boss, he's the boss. So yeah. Um, so now you were talking about your controls. Yeah, it's worrying as a researcher, to have these controls and none of them to be working. But when you read the literature, what are the controls this literature used? And did
Yeah,
you use exactly these controls or did you change it?
yeah. So most of the literature that I came across, whether in Africa or not in Africa, the first control is GDP. The second is energy consumption, and those that I find them common is GDP, energy consumption, and trade. But the trade, most of the countries that I'm having, the trade is incomplete. And as I said, I don't want to tamper with the data, so I just drop that variable. I have it in my data set, right? But then most of the countries are having a lot of potholes in them, so I drop it. So the very common variables that I have with the literature that I have them so far is GDP, energy consumption, and industrialization. So that's why I'm still keeping those three.
And 1 minute, did you consider how, for instance, they measured these variables specifically? Because
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. So GDP was measured as GDP per capita, as usual, and trade is measured as a percentage of total trade as a percentage of GDP. Most of my variables are as a percentage of GDP. Industry too is industry as a percentage of GDP. I have the raw data, but due to time, I can't show everything.
yeah, lastly, maybe you can try alternative measurements. of the same variable to see how it works. Because you can maybe try the level data. So instead of percentage of GDP, you can try it like in US dollar term or something like that to see. Yeah, I think that might help.
That's great. Yeah.
So I think basically it's talking about different transformations, right, of the same variable, right?
Yes, different
Okay,
different
so
measurements.
yeah, please, Kodum, if you can just take us through the contribution that you expect that the paper should. Uh,
So
I think we can end it here. Yes.
yeah. So the contribution that I'm trying to make is most of the literature has been done, but it's not in Africa. And those that I came across them that were found in Africa too, they are not considering the main problem that I think Africa is facing. I think the problem in Africa is the quality of the institutions that we have. So most of the studies did not consider the fact that aside the strong human capital, the institutions is also should be a moderating factor. So that's the first contribution that I'm trying to make. And the second, some of the studies too were considered micro level. So they'll take maybe some group of people and they see the impact of certain uh, climate education that they had, whether it impacted the way those particular people their lifestyle. So they were just considering whether climate education impacted individual lifestyle. So I was also doing at the macro level as the whole country or the whole of Africa. So that's one contribution that I was also making aside those that I found in the literature. And second, as I stated earlier, that if the institutions or the governance happens to be a good moderating factor that accounts for environmental pollution, then it's significant or it's important that we consider uh, these two factors as something that is important in protecting our environment. So I was trying at first. I was considering macro level. Second, um, combining education and institution and see how these two can help protect our environments. So those are the contribution that I was making. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the contribution. And I think we really appreciate it. I think you have some final words. Any final words before you go? Although Enoch wants to say it, but please, any final words from you first?
Okay.
I want
So
you to go to the conclusion of the paper, if you can, please.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yeah. So I would say my conclusion is my first line that education at the micro level or even the macro level is very important. And I came across some of the papers that consider the micro level, that is climate education in general. So we shouldn't only be concerned about those in schools and all that. Education that we are talking about this year can be the basic education, the basic climate education that we give to our farmers and the people home who are not having this formal education. They also contribute very hugely to to pollution. So looking at considering all this, building a strong human capital, not only in schools, but strengthen even those at home, it will help to protect our environment. I'm very happy that our case he's also interested in environmental economics. It's a very interesting field that
Mm.
when you are there, you see that the economy is not about GDP and all that, but if you have strong environmental and good environmental, it helps us to also live a better life.
When you say GDP, is like you are throwing some shares at those of us who are interested in macroeconomics, right? But don't worry, we'll forgive you. Anyway, if you have some final words for him before he leaves.
Yes, Kodom, thank you. Marzo, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
I
sure,
just want
please.
to thank Kodom for his marvelous presentation. And I'll end with just a question. I want to find out from your expected result, what are or what is a possible recommendation in terms of policy recommendations you are likely to give in this your research in terms of institutional quality? How do you intend to solve the problem of institutional quality? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, my boss. So, I think I didn't get a chance to mention touch
Yeah,
on
I
the
think that's
policy.
my fault. Forgive me, but please go
No,
on.
it's
Then
the
wrap it up,
time.
please. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
please.
I didn't get a chance to touch on it. So basically, I'm just suggesting or trying to tell those in government or those in power that they should try to invest in our educational system, not only those, as I mentioned, not only those in school, but also providing environmental education to our local farmers and the people at home too will help protect our environment too. And if my hypothesis holds, then it's very crucial that we should be very uh, careful with our institution. The regulate when you look at the institutional quality, it's six qualities. So if there's instability in a country, it's all going to affect every part of the economy. So we should be ready to build strong institutions to protect our people and also the environment.
That
Okay,
is
thank you so much.
wonderful. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And I think we'll be following you to see how this beautiful paper unravels. And hopefully in the future, we'll invite you back once again so that you come and share with us the final results that you've gotten. So,
Yeah.
guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Um, can I
My
say
name is, yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I want to say thank you to all those who contributed. It's very, very educative. Since I'm still working on it, it's going to help me to, build on some of the variable like Edward like this. I was just
Yeah.
worried because some of the data set variables are what I wanted to use, but then they are not giving me what I want. So thank you all for
Okay.
your
Okay.
suggestion too. And thank you,
Okay. Thank you.
my boss.
Oh, please don't say it. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully, next week we'll not be having a presentation, but next week we'll be pitching an idea. So, I hope that you guys are able to join us to see what we have for you guys. It's something that we are planning on. We call it the Economics Weekly Research Hub 2.0. It's something that we hope that will help economics students in KNUST and in some other schools in Ghana to research stuff, hopefully. So, thank you guys all. Thank you all, and hopefully, I'm gonna see you next week. And bye bye.